Welcome into the Sports Objective as we have a very special night as we're starting our 50 Pirates in 50 days. With us right now, the usual suspects. We have Kyle Barber. What's up, man?
Go on, guys. How y'all doing?
I want to call you Kyle from Gatlinburg, but I guess that won't be appropriate. You're
I'm
back.
back home, brother. I'm back home.
All right, good. Bubba Rosenbaum, what's up in China Grove?
I'm doing great, guys. Hope y'all are.
No doubt about it. Bubba's this was a brainchild of Bubba last year to do 50 Pirates in 50 days. It was so popular that one of our things we always like to do on the Sports Objective is to reminisce, talk history, talk about certainly have former players back on with his football, basketball, whatever the case, baseball, or any of our Olympic sports, obviously. And right now, Bubba, we got a very special guest.
Yeah, like you said, Dave, last summer we had a tremendous response to the 50 Pirates in 50 days. And so we figured we'd do it again as opening day, and kickoff against Marshall is drawing closer all the time. And right now, let's welcome in North Carolina native. He played for the Pirates from 85 to 89 for Art Baker and Bill Lewis. Offensive lineman Grant Lowe. Grant, welcome in.
Thanks for having me, guys.
I'm just so far impressed. I know you said your wife helped you, but you've got a great picture. So far, so good. Not to jinx us with the lag that, technology is great when it works, but love the T-shirt too. We the East, great shirt there for you. Let's talk about your road to becoming a Pirate. I told you that I became a Pirate about the same time you did as a fan. You were obviously playing during that time when I was a teenager. Talk about your road. How did Art Baker? How did you guys connect? How did you guys meet? And how did you become a Pirate?
I played at Grimsley High School. Coach Dick Knox and Jeff Smouse. I was being recruited my senior year. I actually went to the North Carolina football camp and actually had a pretty good groin pull catching a pass. And so my senior year, I had it kind of affected me. So I didn't get recruited by as big of schools as I wanted to. So I actually went to prep school in Tennessee. It was a school called TMI. And Bobby McKinnon was the coach, and actually Burt Reynolds was like the sponsor. It was outside in Sweetwater, Tennessee, about 40 minutes west of Knoxville, and played there. Got re-recruited. Played with Anton Davis, who played for the Tennessee and who played in the pros, and Willie Green, who played at Ole Miss and played for the Panthers in Detroit. And then I just got re-recruited. I think we played, I guess on Sundays, we played some JV teams from other colleges, and that's the year ECU played at Auburn. And then so we played the guys that didn't get to play in the real game. We played them on that Sunday, and then I was on the sideline and I saw Mr. Van Sant, who was helped with some recruiting and did some stuff for the football team. And he actually was a teacher at my school, and they recruited me there. And went down, took a visit in December. Stuart Ward took me out. Wasn't many people there, but I could have waited and took my other visits, but it felt like a good fit. So I went ahead, committed, and started there in January of so I've been January of '86. And then from there I had a visit to South Carolina and NC State and Duke. And up here in Triad, it's pretty much all ACC country, and I kind of felt a little slighted. So that's I was starting to hear more about East Carolina, starting to get on the map, and that's how I ended up there.
Yeah, you mentioned being in ACC country there in Greensboro. So growing up, were you a Tar Heel fan, a Wolfpack fan? Who'd you root for growing up?
I've always liked Duke basketball, still do. Not really. College, I was kind of like they didn't really have a favorite team, I'd say. But my parents took me to Duke football games and that's where I kind of grew up playing on the sideline. And actually one time snuck down on the field and got wiped out on a sweep play when I was about 8 years old. That was my first contact.
Oh my gosh. What a great way to get introduced to football, I guess, was. As far as the Pirates are concerned, can you talk about your experience? I know one of the coaches that I know you said you keep in contact with, and I mean, he's a legend. He could have a statue outside of the stadium. That's Steve Shankweiler. Talk about him and talk about some behind the scenes as far as coaching. I know that he can't. I've heard him at practice before. He can't be the easiest guy to play for, but then again, that's a good thing. That means he's coaching you.
Yeah, I guess my freshman year was John Zernhelt was the offensive line coach, and then he left there, and then Shankweiler came the spring before my sophomore year. That was a young Shankweiler then. That was his first stint there, so he had a lot more fire and vinegar about himself. But he was a great teacher. I was average size, average strength, had pretty good feet, but, the technique he taught, I believed in it. Once I started there at left tackle my sophomore year, and I started the next 3 years, I didn't miss a game, but he was probably one of the 3 most influential men in my life. So.
Yeah, talking about, Steve Shankweiler, I don't know too many other situations like his in college football. Here under Art Baker, retained under Bill Lewis, comes back under Steve Logan, comes back under Skip Holtz, comes back under Coach Houston. I mean, it's 2020, and Shank is back at East Carolina again. I mean, who would have thought? I mean, how unique is that?
I think it's pretty much unheard of this in college sports. I mean, especially a football coach. And I actually GA'd a year with him and Coach Lewis, and I just seeing all of the many times they had to move, that kind of got me away from not being a coach. And they didn't make near as much money then as they do now. But it's just that, he'd go and he'd stay and he'd come back. And every time I'd go down there, if he was coaching, I'd try to get up with him. And a lot of the ex-players I still keep in touch with and try to get down there to Letterman's game. But, he's definitely, I think we pushed him for trying to be a head coach there a couple of years. It just didn't work out. But
it was close.
Yeah, we had some tremendous coaches while I was there. I mean, you talk about Mark Richt was there my senior year. You had Kevin Gilbride, who was a coach in the NFL. You had Chuck Pagano. You had Clyde Christensen, who was with Indy with Manning, and now he's at Tampa Bay with Brady. So a lot of coaches, a lot of good coaches.
So
yeah, like you're saying, Grant. I don't know if it's Hero Sports or the Bleacher Report or SB Nation. One of those sites did a feature article on that 1989 staff that Coach Lewis had with the likes of Mark Richt, Steve Logan, Ron Cooper, Jeff Jagosinski, Chuck Pagano, etc. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think we didn't realize back then, for now we're like looking at it like, we had some pretty good coaches, and we were right on the cusp, the foundation. We were still not getting the top guys, but we were getting some studs in and, scaring some people, that 87 game, when we beat State, they used the excuse to the aftermath, not to play us, but really they didn't want any more of us.
Talk about the game against NC State.
I started that game.
What are your memories of that and just the game and then the aftermath?
The game was I remember the first play of the game, right before we got the ball and a torrential downpour for like 5 seconds, and I think we fumbled. Kyle Condrey was sitting on just a slippery ball, and we got down and they scored. But then after that, we were running the trap option, and we were just mashing them. And I remember being down on the other end and about the 10-yard line, and one of our guys jumped off sides, and he was all upset. I said, man, don't worry, we're going to run this thing down their throat. We end up, and they were running over Ray Agnew, and some of those guys were on the defensive line, but they were gassed, and we seemed like we were in a little better shape. And we pretty much physically dominated that game. And it was funny because I had 2 high school friends of mine, Brian Carter, who was a kicker, and Brian Gay, who was actually hurt, he was hurt, but he'd have been out there. So it was pretty cool being a lot of State fans around here, and they knew me and had a lot of support.
So what about the aftermath? It was the on the field incidences after the game where the Pirate fans stormed the field. What are your memories of that?
I know because we came out, we had some kind of program before, and after we won, we came out like stuck a sword or something in the end zone. But there were some fans there. But a lot of those people even didn't go to ECU. We kind of, like I said, it happened, and we had some fault, but it wasn't as much as they wanted. Like I said, they tried to get out of that deal because they knew seemed like we were on the uptick.
Exactly, and they had to be, of course, one of the greatest. That was one of that 83 game, and of course the 87 game. But I'll never forget being a brand new Pirate. I think that was my second season pulling for the team. And I remember that game very well. I'm watching the highlights on television, and they called it the riot, the Raleigh television, the riot.
Yeah.
I was like, where's that's not a riot. Are you kidding me? But I remember that very well, that there's so many games I've seen, but I've never, I couldn't believe that they call that a riot still to this day.
Yeah, I know they always said that game they found more alcoholic beverage bottles than all the games combined, so maybe that has a little reason behind it.
And we would come back later in '99, 12 years later, playing Miami, and tear the goalpost down again.
Yeah, I was at that game. I was at that game. That was an awesome game. Keith Stokes, I think, had a nice play there, and
Oh yeah.
but we came back, and it was, I think it was, you just brought your ticket in. It was you sitting where you want, if I remember correctly. But then, once they knew we were going to tell they already had planned if we won, we were going to tear the goalpost down, and I think they ended up paying for it, but no worries.
Well, the best part about that, and people forget, is we had because of that, we had given them carte blanche to tear down our goalpost in '99 because we played them in Greenville later that year in '99. So we said, if they beats us, the goalposts are theirs, and then we beat them again and tore down our own goalpost.
Right.
That was the very first I was there. That was the very first time in Greenville. I had a relative of mine. He was not too happy with the state fans heckling East Carolina, and he started chanting 64 West. He told them to get on their tractor and go back on 64 West. So anyway, great game. In fact, that game was the first time, guys, wasn't that the first time we had over 50,000 with the they were like PGA type bleachers back then?
End zone bleachers, yes.
I think that was that the first year of the upper deck too?
The upper deck
Second year.
Yep.
98.
Yep.
98. Okay.
Second year.
Temporary end zone bleachers.
Right. Well, my dad, he passed away, but he used to stand in the end zone, and I could always hear him hollering during the game, so it was kind of cool.
What about some of your teammates? When we always hear stories about Greenville in the 80s and 70s and 80s, and of course my time was in the 90s.
Right.
But what about you're talking about former players you keep up with? Can you talk about some of them and some of your great memories? This great when you're on a sports team sport, especially when you get to know people and coaches and everything, and the bond that you create with them.
Yeah, like moved into Belk Dorm, no AC.
Yeah.
For a few years until finally Scott Dorm, we moved in there. I think my last couple of years we had AC. I get there and I'm a 250-pound young guy, and I meet, some of the old guys, Robert Alexander, who passed, Greg Thomas, Kenny Bourgeois, Curtis Struck. I wrote some names down so I wouldn't forget anybody. Paul Hoggard. And they were the old guys. They were all seniors, and they kind of took us under their wing. Me, Billy Michelle, Stuart Southall, Todd Drujak, Kyle Condry, Wade Perry, and they were kind of taught us what we needed to do, and we learned a lot from them.
You were talking about those dorms were really, really, of course now they've been remodeled and air conditioning, but how much fun was it to be on College Hill being an athlete? And that area of campus is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, because we ate at the training table, which is, when we were the only athletes only ate there, it was different. They don't do that anymore, which was just across the parking lot. And then you walk down to all your classes. So it was a really good atmosphere. But yeah, I guess they finally figured out it's good not to have the football players eating together and staying in the same place. They kind of went full circle on that. Now they spread everybody out, but really good times there. Then we moved to Scott, and we moved and had the AC was awesome. I think we only had 2 floors at AC, and the rest didn't. Everybody was a little jealous, but it worked out.
That was I guess that was kind of the glory days, if you will, of downtown with the attic.
Oh yeah.
Some of the other places. What are your memories of downtown and specifically the attic? See any good bands there back in the day?
I wasn't really a music guy. I think the Black Crows were down there. Went to the Elbow, went to Bogies, turned into Bogies, and that what now I guess is Sup Dogs was another little place we'd hang out there before then. I can't remember what it was. I know it was a convenience store / eating.
Stop Shop.
Yeah, maybe Stop Shop. There you go. It was good times. We had the big in '87. We played Miami on Halloween, and it was crazy down there. There's probably 100,000 people downtown. It was just a good time. Like I said, we just starting the foundation of the football team. Like starting to get a little better recruits, starting to have a little success, and we beat Virginia Tech, I think, in '87 up at their place, and we started to get a little traction, I thought.
Now you were going out as Bill Lewis was coming in, and you talked about
that. So Bill Lewis came in my senior year. It was funny. Actually, I was on the committee for the new coach with Dave Hart, and then we were trying to get Gilbride because he just left. He was from Canada. Gilbride went on to win the Super Bowl with the Giants as offensive coordinator, then was with San Diego head coach before he had the Ryan Leaf debacle. But I knew he was ahead of his time, offensive genius. But they went with defense. They wanted the defense with Bill Lewis, and it was funny. I go back to my dorm room, and my roommate was Rob Imperato, and he said, that was before cell phones, obviously, and he said, Bill Lewis wants you to give him a call. I was like, what? And he was like, I said, you're kidding, man. He said, no, he wants you to give you a call. So I called him, and he just wanted me to spread the word about when he'd be there and stuff. And actually, Dean Buchan, he was over our sports information department. I actually did a live interview there in front of Minji's, and they were like, Grant, we don't usually go live. You could be able to handle it. And I was like, yeah, I think I can handle it. So it was kind of interesting.
Now, I guess the answer is there's no way you could have known, but did you have any idea that just a couple of years that Coach Lewis and that staff was going to have the success they had with the Peach Bowl? Could you sense that there was a wind of change coming when he got here?
Art Baker was a great guy, great person. I think Bill Lewis brought just a little more discipline, and obviously you named all those good coaches. That didn't hurt either. But I knew deep down, he was mad that he didn't get the Georgia job. I guess they gave it to Brad Scott, if I'm correct. And I think that was just one of his big push to go back to Georgia Tech. He wanted to beat Georgia. But he was a great individual as well. We had good coaches, and you always think you want people to stay there, don't use it as a stepping stone. And I think we were getting to that point here a few years ago. I just think we need to get back there that we can lock somebody in, 5-10 years when we get somebody we like.
Well, the thing is, when we get somebody that don't want to use it as a stepping stone, Steve Logan, Ruff, and McNeil, we run them off.
Yeah, players were pretty upset when Ruff got let go. I guess that's that one AD. He's not here anymore, but a lot of people, players, kind of didn't come back while they were mad because Ruff. Well, we had a 6-0 record against the ACC and South Carolina, Virginia Tech, and he just wouldn't do some things they wanted to, and they let him go. And I think we learned a lesson.
We did, and you're right. Mr. Confer is no longer here. Unfortunately, the university is still paying him about $20,000 a month to buy out a contract that should have never been signed. I say don't pay him a damn thing. Make him sue us.
All right.
And sue me. So for me personally, the fact that the last athletic director doesn't have his career anymore says a lot. When people underestimate Pirate Nation and they come in and they don't sometimes they don't realize like how great we are and how great our fans are, how great the players are. You're a perfect example of a guy, and there's a lot of men and women that play sports for East Carolina that care so much about the program. It's not about me. It's so great when these guys, the men and women, go back to those programs like football, for example, and you care so much about it and you love it so much. It's not like you had your time and you don't care about it anymore.
Oh yeah, I probably get more excited for big games now than I did when I played. Especially once we got the respect of the ACC, that felt good. We were on the map. We'd always have a few, good years. I guess we went to a bowl like 8 years in a row. Then we had a little down year, and then we got back up. So, just the stadium alone, I was there. We had the two sides. It was grass around there. It's big time now. Where it's, we usually pretty much lead the state in attendance. Like I said, I think we're pointing upward, and I think we'll get there shortly.
A couple of things I wanted to ask you, Grant. Going back to the training table, I know you mentioned that, and that's something that we're actually getting back to the last couple of years. Scotty Montgomery certainly preached it. And then Coach Houston knew it was a necessity, and so they've had a kind of a makeshift training table, not an actual dining facility like we'll hopefully have in the future. But I remember a feature that the coaches show, the Bill Lewis show, had on you in 1989. You were talking about gaining the weight, and I remember how many calories was it you were taking in a day? They had that special feature with Brian Bailey.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, I played about 275, but I always try to keep my weight up, and it was hard. It's definitely not as hard today, that's for sure. But yeah, I'd eat Thanksgiving every meal, breakfast and lunch, and try to keep the weight on. And but now with all the drinks and all this stuff, now a lot of them, I know they have them actually near the practice field and people eat there. And, that's definitely we didn't really know that much about the diet in. I think they know a lot now. Well, it's funny, we had all cotton. I'd love to just play where I didn't have my undershorts and my shirt. Once it got wet, it stayed wet. And I just had to fight through it. Now they got all that stuff, 12. We had 2 uniforms of white and purple. Now they got like 27 uniforms and all the underarm stuff that if you sweat, it doesn't get all nasty. So, yeah, it's come a long way, but I'm sure it's awesome, even more awesome to be a Pirate now than it was back then.
Bubba.
Hey, Grant.
Wait a minute. Hold on, Bubba.
Yeah.
How in the hell did you remember that segment from the Bill Lewis show in 1989 when you were 8 years old?
Because I'm sick, Kyle. I told you that.
He's still recovering.
I think that was on when we played the Cincinnati. You can actually YouTube the Bill Lewis show. It's on there.
Oh, okay. So you're blowing his cover. It's on YouTube.
No, but Kyle, honestly, you've known me for 2+ years now, and you've heard me spit out enough Pirate stuff. Yes, it is on YouTube, and I have seen it, but that's something I actually recalled anyway. Don't ask me why, but I recalled it. And Grant, before I get to my next question, Kevin Mills, one of our viewers, chimes in with, he said, "What's up, Grant? I know you from when you dated my friend Jim Holly." I'm sorry. And he said, "I actually wore your number due to the impression you made on me."
Oh, that's cool. Wow. I do. I remember. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. By the way, Grant, we actually have Bubba at a 12-step program to help him out with all these things he remembers maybe he shouldn't remember. But certainly, as far as the calories are concerned, do you think now, because I know Bubba, wasn't it Big Ed Watkins, a friend of our show, that said that Bubba's head is full of useless trivia?
Thank you, Kevin. I love you too, Kevin.
But I think it was Big Ed Watkins. He said his idea of a training table back in the day was Chick-fil-A. Wasn't that right, Bubba?
Yeah, obviously Big Ed's here in the Charlotte area now, and I talked to him a couple times at the Pirate Armada, and he was saying, I mean, he knows we need it, but at the same time, it was fun to act like we don't. He said back in the mid-'90s, we were winning 8 and 9 games on Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, I think they went from the training table we had, then they would let them eat at all the different places on campus to make it a little easier, because back in the day, you'd have to walk all the way back to eat, even if you had class, that because that's the only place that was obviously you didn't have to pay. But now, like I said, it's come a long way.
But the other question I had for you, kind of piggybacking off what the guys were asking you as far as seeing that 1991 season coming in 89 and 90, we had won 5 games each of those 2 years, but we had near misses. You talk about Ray Goff getting that Georgia job instead of Bill Lewis. We went down there in 1990 and lost to those guys in a heartbreaker, like 20-15 or something weird. And then in 89, when you were still playing, we went up to Pittsburgh and Syracuse and lost heartbreakers on the road to ranked teams.
Yeah, I remember we lost that on a field goal to Syracuse. We played them tough. They had a good team. And, Pittsburgh was a wild game. I mean, it started off sunny, then it blizzard, and then it got back sunny again. But I remember we had the ball. Was it like 47-43? We had the ball on our final drive. We're getting down there. It was funny because they threw a pass to Walter Wilson. He got behind the guy. And I remember running behind Walter. I was telling him to pitch it back to me. I can score. We did not score, but didn't end up scoring.
Yeah,
it was great. It was a good game. Like both those games, we definitely could have won. We were very close.
Wow.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were finished, but my parents and I were actually at that game, and that pass there at the very end, I remember it being completed. And Jeff Blake came in that game. I don't know, trying to remember if Travis Hunter got hurt or what, but we jumped out to that 21-0 lead, and then, like you said, had the ball there late and completed the pass down inside the 5-yard line.
Yeah. I just remember running down there, and I couldn't know if anybody was behind me or not. But it was funny because the next day they were cussing us out in the offensive meeting. I was like, we did score 43 points, didn't we? Better be a little louder in the defensive meeting.
That's true. As far as Pirate fans and Pirate Nation with the tailgating, and can you talk about maybe some things? It seems like to me that has always been strong. It's something that I'm very proud to be a Pirate, and one of the reasons is that the fan base is so great.
Yeah, obviously I didn't get the tailgate when I played, but I
Right.
definitely made up for it now.
I know.
I try to get there early, and a buddy of mine, Wade Perry, we get together, who played, and we get, obviously for Letterman's weekend, we get all the guys together, Carl Carney. We get together, and it's just, you make a day of it, and it's good, wholesome atmosphere. But I always like going to, like, I guess we played Duke a couple of times here in the past 20 years, and we would go there, and there'd be a lot more Duke people.
Yeah, Johnny,
I mean, a lot more ECU people tailgating than Duke people. They're like, look at you like you're aliens or something.
Art Baker is a good Johnny says Art Baker's a great man. If you remember, I think it was 88. Travis Hunter was really moving us versus Miami. Then we seemed to just abandon it. Was it scripted plays and then hard to make adjustments from that point?
I think we should have let Travis be Travis a little more. And I think as the year went out of Pittsburgh, I think he threw 4 touchdown passes, if I remember correctly. And I think most of them were to Walter Wilson and maybe one to Luke Fisher. But Travis, it seemed like they obviously knew he was athletic, could run. I think they held him back just a hair. I think if we'd opened up a little more, I think would have been a little more successful. But he was a great athlete. I love being him my quarterback because, it was, if they got by me, they still had trouble catching him. But I think my senior year was when they put Blake in just for like 3 plays, and that cost him a year. He could have had another year if it wasn't for that, because we had Travis, and we had Charlie Libretto, and the guy from Somerville, South Carolina, Brad Walsh, as well. So,
by the way, Grant, Mike Radford, who we're going to have on Thursday night for the ECU wrestling special we have coming up, he said, when you're born of Gary Rosenbaum, anybody will be full of ECU stuff. And Gary is Bubba's dad. So.
Oh, okay.
And here's another one. That was we did play them in 1990. Didn't ECU play on the road in Athens at Georgia? And that was the year. That was the year after you. That was your first year graduated, right? 1990.
Yeah, actually, I GA'd that year. Actually, I went out and scouted them with some GAs. Actually, I think that's the game that put George Kuntz on the map and got him drafted and stuff. Because my senior year, he was, just one of the guys, but then he really blossomed that next year and ended up making him a lot of money.
So talk about you said you GA'd the 1 or 2 years. What has life been after football? We know you've been in law enforcement. So tell us about life the last 30 years or so.
Yeah, just moved back to Greensboro. I've been coaching. I've coached at Grimsley High School. I coached my sons, and then did stuff within the police department, was on the SWAT team, did all that stuff, and just coming back to ECU games and just Panthers. I have Panther season tickets, so I had to sit down and schedule out my Sundays and Saturdays and try to match it up. And so just big in the community, big in coaching. Might possibly try to get back into it when I retire here in April. See if Shankwater needs a little help down there. I might could help him out a little bit, show him some pointers.
That's very cool.
But,
my
wife, Jacqueline Lowe, she's been a teacher, and now she, like I said, she actually enrolled in the graduate program. She starts in August. So we've looked at maybe coming back down there when I retire. We're always looking on Zillow. We love that little area right around the stadium, like everybody does. But it'll be an option. See what my oldest son does.
Can I park at your house?
Sure. There's one house, if you look on Zillow, right behind the old Bell.
$200.
It has a whole ECU room in it, so it's pretty cool.
And we're going to give you 200.
Now, Grant, before you GA'd, I may be mistaken on this, but did you get an opportunity with the Redskins or someone as a free agent?
I had an agent, and that was the year they cut down the number of people in camp. And I think they thought I was going to get drafted late, 6th or 7th round. They only had 6 or 7 rounds in. Now I did get drafted. I think my agent was a little bummed, and then he called and said, "Okay, we got a free agent with the Washington Redskins." I was like, "All right, just give me a chance." And I'm, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Then that fell through, and I kind of got out a little bit. But then when the USFL started, I guess they had the Raleigh team, the Skyhawks. You remember them for a year, and I actually went down there and tried out for them. And they said, if you get a physical, you need to go and get a passport because you could actually be played in Germany. So I ended up getting a physical. So I thought I was going to do that, and then never heard anything back from them. So that was kind of it.
Now you mean the World
Football
World
League.
League. That's right. Sorry, my fault.
Yeah.
The World. Yeah. I think that only lasted a year, maybe 2.
The cool thing about that, certainly, I remember about that league is they had that. It was like a lipstick camera. They called it the quarterback cam.
Right.
That was an interesting view that you had of you could see the field as if you were the quarterback. That was really neat. I did like that. That was my favorite part about the league. That's probably why it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I think some of the new league that what has won this past year, the AFL kind of took some of their stuff from there. It was pretty neat. And the XFL, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems in these leagues that they have 2 problems, to my opinion, why they don't work. One, they always do it in the winter. I think if a league would start up like you mentioned, the USFL, when they had success, they ran during the summer.
Yeah.
And I think that's when people are hungry for football. And 2, quit with the gimmicks. People want to watch football like they're used to watching football. I think if you just play straight ahead football, shoot it like college and the NFL does, and put it during the summer, I think there would be an opportunity to have a successful pro league outside of the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a football fan, sometimes that's your number one sport. You'll have other sports you like, but that's the number one, and you'll watch it, as long as it's competitive and you have, it's old school football. I think it could be a success.
Yep.
All right. We have Kevin Mills on YouTube. Thank you, Kevin. He said, "Thanks, Grant, for your service to the community on the police department. We need that thin blue line, Joshua 1:9, of course, from the Bible. So I want to put that up there for you."
Appreciate it, Kevin. Yeah, it's been like this. I'll have 28 and a half years. I'll have a year and a half of sick time, but it's definitely a calling, but it's time to hand it over to somebody else.
I had a question as far as the SWAT team. Do you have any interesting stories there that you could share with us?
Yeah, we don't have. I got many stories, but yeah, we did a bunch of drug raids. I was the one. I was on the breach team. I'd hit the door with the ram. I probably hit over 100 doors.
Wow.
Then I was a gas man. I would throw the flashbangs and shoot the gas, and try to get the bad guys out. But a lot of training, a lot of good guys. I did that for 10 years. Then it was definitely a young man's game. I passed it on to the younger guys, but definitely some good training. I wasn't in the military or anything, so I learned a lot about tactics and training and stuff. So it was definitely a great experience.
Is heroin still a bigger problem as it was a couple of years ago in the Greensboro area?
Yeah, it's probably, it's pretty much, I think, taken over. I think crack's gone down to 3rd behind heroin and meth. We see that more. And we have many overdoses every day. But a lot of people have the Narcan now. And
yeah.
So they'll do it and then they'll
Narcan
and come back. So yeah, it's definitely it's a problem, and it affects anybody who messes with it. So
you can get that Narcan free, can't you?
Yeah, I think some places will give it out, maybe some of the drug centers, and then officers carry it on their person as well. So.
And the thing about heroin, we're getting on a drug rant here, and this dealing with SWAT, but people that don't know, the reason people OD on heroin is every time you take it, the high gets less and less, and they call it chasing the dragon. They're trying to get back to that first high, and they never are able to replicate it, and they just keep taking more and more until they OD.
Yeah. Like I said, it's nasty. I don't know what the solution is, to be honest.
In fact, it's so dirt cheap, right, Grant?
Yeah, you can get $10 baggies, and some of it, I know the opioids, people get injuries and stuff, and that does happen. I'd say probably 25%, then they can't get the pills anymore, so they still are addicted to it and they go that way. So that does affect somewhat.
That's gonna be. Let's talk positive stuff. I know you've mentioned a little bit. No, we appreciate your service and anybody that's in uniform. We appreciate you very much for all that you've done for Greensboro and the Triad area. Let's talk about Mike Houston. I know you and I talked before we started 50 Pirates in 50 days. If you're just joining us, we'll be doing this up until the kickoff against Marshall. Hopefully August 29th. We'll keep our fingers crossed. But until I hear different, I'm going to say that. Grant, let's talk about Mike Houston. I want to get your thoughts on him. Obviously, we talked about Shank. We have Donnie K. We've got the, like that. And the three guys on this podcast, until we see things differently, we love the guy. We love Mike Houston. We loved him before he came to East Carolina. So we're just tickled to have to have him. When you had that, you were talking about the climb with when you had Art Baker and then, of course, Bill Lewis. Do you feel like we're climbing now with Mike Houston?
Oh, most definitely. I haven't met him personally, but I remember being he was from James Madison, correct? I remember when they came to ECU, I guess it's
17,
and I looked at that team and I was like, that team looks like the Division I team, and the other team, I was like, they look like the higher class team just on their size and their players. I was like, they got some studs on that team. So right then, and that's kind of where I saw his name, and then I knew all the success he had at James Madison. So like I said, I think we're ticking up, and this year's kind of going to be interesting. But like you said, in 21, we were real young. It's funny because one of my roommates, Bobby Winstead, his son's on the team. Peyton, my good friend Stafford Moser, his son's on the team, and then he married Ricky Prohl's sister, and their son's on the team as well. So I know a lot of guys. So like I said, I just think we're going in the right direction. I actually I was over the track the other day in High Point that Nolan Johnson was out there working out. Met him, seemed like a good kid. He was working hard. So
as we speak, the wide receiver Troy Lewis commits to East Carolina. So that's another big pickup for the 21 class. I just saw that on my phone. So I was going to ask you that very thing about recruiting. You're being a high school coach. How well do you think this? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but being a high school coach, how well do you think Mike Houston and the staff's doing recruiting wise?
I think very good. I think I don't keep up too much on recruiting when they sign. I look at all their stuff, and it's high school is very it's hard because you get some guys that's the top names, but they've already reached their plateau. I was one that actually matured a little later, and you get those guys that actually mature later and actually end up being better than the main guys. I mean, you look at that All-American National Parade team, half those guys don't end up even playing. They get there and they peak so early. So that's part of recruiting. Judging talent is obviously huge. And I think now with, the way you can see people on film and everybody's doing all these films, you can find definitely some diamonds in the rough.
Bubba, did you have a question?
No, that's what earlier I was just going to chime in when you mentioned that about the most recent commitment. That's our 6th commitment now for the 2021 class.
Yeah, I want to thank our good friend Stephen Igo. I usually do that when I forgot to. So Stephen Igo, thank you for that from hoistthecolors.net. Does a great job and definitely follows the program. He follows recruiting extremely close. And one of the reasons why I'm following recruiting now is because of being a member of that site of hoistthecolors.net. So I want to give him credit for that. I didn't think about to give him credit. So Stephen, that's for you. Grant, as far as retirement is concerned, I know you talked about going back into football, maybe full time. Do you have any other things that you want to do as maybe hobbies or different things outside of football?
I just love the beach. We talked about getting some friends of mine and sharing a beach house together. Not much really hobbies now, just trying to keep moving, get on the track, walk some. I saw Shank said he walks 4 miles a day, so I try to do about the same. Just get it up, get it over with in the morning. Keep everything going good. But just looking forward to my oldest son's getting into it and following him around.
As far one thing I failed to mention, I thought about earlier and then didn't ask you, high school football. Do you see that happening this year? I know that the governor, not to be Debbie Downer, the governor from South Carolina said there's not going to be football if things continue the way they go, and rightfully so, the way things are.
Just threatening people to make them wear masks. So.
I know. I'm just saying that's scary to think about. No high school or college football in the state of South Carolina, the Palmetto State. That's kind of scary. But do you think we'll have football here? It won't be that long. It's just around the corner.
Yeah, they usually report August 1st, if I remember. And Grimsley's going to have an outstanding team. They lost by 1 point to the state champs, East Forsyth, twice. And I'm hearing their team's going to be even better this year. So, I don't know. These next 3 weeks are going to be big. Do you push it out the season later? It's going to be some hard choices. And I think with high school football, that's probably more even than college and pro. I mean, if you don't have football, that pays for almost all the other sports combined. So, it's going to be a lot of tough choices. Like I said, I think the next month is going to be big.
You're right about that. We need to get maybe
It'll be fun.
Harold Robinson, he was a former, of course, coaching at ECU with the high school relations, but he was the football coach at Williamston High, and of course, he's a Washington native. But he was the AD there, and I'll never forget him talking about. There was thousands of people that would go to the high school football game, and back then in the '80s, it was like maybe $5 a piece. Yeah, but you can think about even at $5 a piece, that you get several thousand people, 3,000 or 4,000. Standing room only, if you will, and that was even before the playoffs. And then when the playoffs happened, we'd have the first or second round there in Williamston, and it was unbelievable the number of cars, the number of people that are at that game. And as much as we love other sports, we know in high school that's where the dollars are.
Oh, most definitely. My good friend Stuart Albright, he played at Duke, and he's a judge now. We keep in touch. And his brother Ethan, who played at Carolina, who played for the Redskins in Buffalo, and he's actually the AD back at Grimsley now. And they've done a great job. And I know everybody wants to play. It's going to be interesting.
I think that's something. Would you be in favor of having high school football? Is there any way possible to have that in the spring? I haven't heard anybody talk about that, but I've heard. It's going to be that would be difficult to do, I would think. Yeah,
logistically, I think since you got basketball, half the football players play basketball, you got other sports, it'd be tough. Could you start it in October, maybe cut it down to 8 games instead of 14, and possibly, like I said, it's a lot of moving parts.
No doubt about it. The kids would be fine. Yeah, I'd be more worried about the fans in the stands than 17, 16, right. 15-year-old teenagers playing ball. If they get sick, it'll be about like having a runny nose to most of them.
Right? Yeah.
Play ball, boys.
Well, certainly we could make it through the next 6 months or so with this COVID thing. Eventually, we'll have the vaccine that we won't have to. Hopefully, we won't have to worry about that anymore. Grant, thank you, man, so much for coming on tonight. Certainly, how can people, I know Pirate fans love to, when we have former players on, to catch up with you and find out what you're up to. How can people keep up with you as far as social media and the like?
Facebook is about my extent. I don't do the Twitter or all the other stuff. But, yeah, I look at my Facebook pretty much regularly. But, like I said, come down to the ECU games, you'll see me. Like I said, all the guys will get together. Robert Alexander, who passed 10 years ago, he was always big. I guess he coached at Rose, and he always had people. You had people coming back, Billy Michelle, Chad Martin. We all have a couple text chains. We get together and talk and try to get up. So, yeah, nothing better than being in Greenville on a Saturday afternoon watching football.
And we definitely will, one way or another. We're going to have, I don't know about the fall. We'll have it soon. I know football. Hopefully we can do that for sure. Grant, thank you so much for being a part. You're our very first one for 50 Pirates in 50 days.
I appreciate it.
Look forward to having you back on real soon, and especially in football season.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, Grant.
Thank you.
Grant Lowe, of course, very special guys. And Grant, we'll see you very, very soon, no doubt. Guys, very interesting to have him, and I know it's going to be a lot of fun when we can talk about a football season. It still seems like that with this COVID thing has been going on for so long now that it would definitely be nice not to have to ever talk about it again.
Yeah, it sure would be, Dave. I'm hoping the numbers start dropping, man. I do think people do need to keep an eye on those mortality numbers. They keep getting better and better, and hopefully that will continue. And if we can just get the numbers to start dropping, we'll see if the mask are as effective as people say, because I see a lot more people wearing masks now, and hopefully that'll be the case. And numbers will drop enough. I'm assuming we're going to have to make a call on the season. All the colleges are practicing as if they're going to play. So I'm assuming that they may can string it out all the way to make a call on the season. But it needs to be, we need football, and hopefully it'll happen. I hope, even if we can't be in attendance initially, I'd be happy to watch it on TV.
Oh, no question about it. Bubba, as far as when you look at you were the one that talked about 25%. And I've jokingly told you guys off the air, wouldn't it be funny, ironic, not funny, haha, but ironic, the very fact that what if this is a big season for the Pirates, meaning when I don't mean 12-0, I'm talking about just making a bowl, winning 6 games, and not having fans be able to see not only all the fans, but this case, if we had starting out the season for a few weeks with 25%.
Certainly wouldn't be ideal, but I mean, obviously it beats the alternative. I mean,
yeah.
Obviously you want the Pirates to be successful. I mean, sure, you would rather it be in front of 40 or 50,000, but if it's in front of 12.5 or 13,000, or maybe at some point 25,000, hey, great. The Pirates are getting better. So once the COVID-19 pandemic is over and we can have a higher capacity, then we'll be drawing like Pirate football is used to drawing for up to about, I guess, 2016 or so.
No doubt about it. Hey, Kyle, if this is if it takes me staying home for the Pirates to win, I'll stay home every game. I've got a big screen like you do. I've got a big screen TV. I'll stay home and watch the games or listen to our good friend Jeff Charles and Marty Fuhrer and Kevin Monroe and our good buddy too as well, David Horn. If that's what it takes to have the TV on and have the radio on as well, like I do, that's what we'll do. Yeah,
I mean, if we can't go to the games, we can't go to the games. We'll see what happens. I just hope there is football. I know a lot of other people feel that way, and time will tell. I think there's a reason no announcement's been made formally yet. They're going to stretch it out as long as they can with the hopes of playing. I can guarantee you, though, if we don't play it in the fall, we're going to play it in the spring. We will not go a calendar year without playing football. Can't afford to.
That was what I was going. That was my next question. Is the very fact that when you look at how many dollars here's an interesting thing I was thinking about too, is that obviously I want the football team to be playing in the fall. There's just something that would be weird not having football. But if you have the spring season, if you will, and you could have 50,000 people, or you could have a lot more fans, are we better off to wait to the spring?
I mean, financially, maybe, but in terms
of still roll the dice.
In terms of people's sanity, no, we need to go ahead and play if we can.
Right.
But in terms of financially, maybe, yeah.
It's something I've been thinking about, but I don't want it to happen. But if that would be one, if that's one of the saving graces for our program, is the fact that that we would have the team play in the spring, and by then, most likely, guys, we would have a vaccine, which means more people that are older, specifically, that are scared to come out right now, they'd be more willing to come out if there's a vaccine, where the chances of them not getting COVID rather would be less and less.
Yeah, I'm hoping for the fall still, but I guess if you have to find a silver lining, if we play it in the spring and there's a vaccine by then yeah, you could have bigger crowds. No doubt.
Bubba, yeah, go ahead.
I had a little bit more about Troy Lewis, the most recent commitment for the 2021 class. Like I said, the 6th commitment for the 21 class out of Chesterfield, Virginia. So same high school as Jacob Coleman, who just committed in the last couple of days. Prior to that, along with that, with Jacob Coleman, last year you had preferred walk-on Jonathan Coleman. So this is 3 players now from that one high school. Troy Lewis, 6'3", 195 receiver, had close to 30 offers. Like so many of these commitments have, and also signees from this previous class, this year's class, and they have multiple academies, if not all 3 academies, Army, Navy, and Air Force, which just shows you some of the character and academic excellence that these guys have. And in addition to that, he had offers from Charlotte, Coastal Carolina, Western Michigan, and some others. But seems like an excellent addition for sure. Haven't had the opportunity to watch the film yet since this obviously just broke. But welcome to Troy Lewis, and hopefully he'll end up signing in December.
No question about it. Again, guys, it's going to be, that's another thing, Kyle, you brought up. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out with the early signing day, I guess it is. I wish we could go back to, I know, Kyle, you talked about it before. I love the signing day in February. I wish that we could go back to that, but I know that Coach Houston has talked about the very fact that it's kind of like you go ahead and you push things up a little bit, but then you're more ahead as far as having your signing class intact, and then you can kind of move on to, I guess, more of getting ready for planning for spring football.
Well, I'll say this: the reason I like the old signing day is because it gives you something to look forward to, football-wise, in February. But I'll say this to a positive to early signing day: the first couple, it seems to help us not lose recruits last minute. It seemed to, back during the old signing day, as your primary signing day in February, we would always lose a guy or two the last day, and that seems to have dissipated, at least initially, these first couple of early signing days.
No question about it. It's going to be fun to see. We're seeing right now, not fun to see, we're already seeing right now Mike Houston building this program. And guys, I can't wait when you have a guy like Grant Lowe on, a guy that worked really hard, and he saw the program after him. And I think there's a lot of guys that are in the same boat, that they're building what Mike Houston wants, and they're getting their guys. You hate to hear that, it's a cliche, but they're getting the guys that they want in, and the guys that don't fall in line of what they want, they're not on the team anymore. And it's fun to watch. The coaching staff that Mike Houston has is tremendous. And if you want an example of that, look at just what we just talked about with the recruiting that's going on. I tell you, there's by year 4 or 5 of Mike Houston will be very special at East Carolina. I've said that from day one. I really believe that. And it'll be nice when people talk about competing for championships. And the reality is, by that point, I really believe we will be competing for American athletic championships.
Yeah, piece by piece. Bubba, what's the latest for the contest, man? Assuming we push this thing out.
Yep.
Yes, we have to confer over that, but
we will confer.
But speaking of coaching staffs, I know we talked about this. I guess it was on Friday night, maybe. But Antoine Jackson was officially named to Joe Dooley's staff today. That broke on ECUPirates.com. He spent last year at Virginia Tech. Prior to that, 7 years at Cincinnati. Also had been at UMass and William and Mary. So an excellent resume. Seems like an excellent addition. Has some excellent ties to the Washington, D.C. area. That's certainly loaded with talent. And also Steve Rockefort, who's entering his 3rd year on Coach Dooley's staff, was promoted from assistant head coach to associate head coach. So congratulations to Coach Rock, and looking forward to an improvement in East Carolina basketball in 2021.
Absolutely. When Coach was on, you remember when we had him on a few weeks back, there was so much, people were so worried when Dooley came here about building a staff. And Kyle, you were the first, I remember on our show talking about the Rockstar staff. Coach Chills didn't leave because he was upset with Dooley. He left for personal reasons, to be closer to his family, his wife and daughter being a teenager and going back home. So you can't blame the guy for that. And then when you bring in, he has, it's like he's reloading with a recent hire, and then you still have Coach Rock, you have George Wright-Easy, Kenny Pataz. Just the whole Kyle Robinson, just everybody that's at ECU basketball. I told you guys I'm a basketball fan, and having Dooley has been the most excited I've been about ECU basketball at a long, long time. This is year number 3 for Dooley, and I think, guys, it's hard to believe we're talking about basketball all the time, but that just speaks volumes of Coach Dooley. And I really believe that we'll have some of the coaches on, and certainly former coaches and players on. But I really believe that this is the year to watch out for Dooley. This year and next year are the 2 years for Dooley with the talent level, with the recruits are getting in. Look out for potentially. I mean, I think right now with the talent we have a chance to be a bubble NIT team. I really do. I think that's our ceiling. I don't think it's NCAA, but I think we have a shot at NIT this year. And I would have never said that in previous years, but I really believe we're getting closer and closer to making postseason tournaments.
Yeah, no doubt. CBI, maybe NIT, who knows? But I think we'll be most improved on the hardware this year.
Oh, I didn't know Potasnic's gone. Oh, I didn't know that. Sorry, Johnny. Well, anyway,
that was one of those deals, Dave. I mean, that was I'm pretty sure just a situation like Kenwick Thompson. He was reassigned. Okay. He was reassigned, never to be heard from again.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't realize that. Okay. Well, you learn something always on the podcast, and certainly on the show. Thank you, Johnny. That's why we have the smartest viewers and listeners. I didn't realize that.
What's Kenwick Thompson been doing these last few years, Bubba? Is he sweeping floors? I mean, what's he doing?
Now, as far as the 2020 season, I'm not sure where he is, but I know that after Scotty's staff, after he was let go from Scotty's staff, he surfaced at Fresno State, and that following season, I guess 2018. I'm not sure when Jeff Tedford stepped down. I don't know where Kenwick Thompson is now. It seems like I remember seeing it, but I honestly do not recall off the top of my head. I'll look that up, and we'll have it on the next show because I know people were just dying to know.
You mean Jeff Tedford hired him? What did he use him for his Gatorade guy or what?
Wow.
Hey, he was just coaching the linebackers. He wasn't coordinating the defense.
Okay, well,
I was going to say, I was going to ask you that very question if he was coordinating.
No, that's enough. No.
No, I don't.
Yeah, he couldn't coordinate a wardrobe. He might have been responsible. You know what? After all this time, thinking if he couldn't coordinate a wardrobe, that son of a bitch may be responsible for Scotty Montgomery wearing a tie with a white pullover.
Wow.
No, yeah. I mean, just from afar, I obviously don't know because I wasn't there every day. But just from afar, that kind of seemed like a situation that like we dealt with in the early 2000s before Greg Hudson came in and simplified things, and we started playing a lot better on defense.
Do you think it's possible? So, I know you weren't there, Bub, but do you think it's possible that Kenwick Thompson's the one who's responsible for Scotty Montgomery wearing the tie with the pullover?
Hey, you can never say never.
Okay, I mean, somebody is responsible for that. I can't believe Scotty's lovely wife, Ebony, didn't say, Scotty, you don't wear a tie with an athletic pullover. It just doesn't look good.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, he sure did. Wow. It doesn't.
David, I've ranted on this several times. It must have just missed you. Or maybe it's just conversations me and Bubba have had. I'm not sure.
No, I think, I mean, you could have. I'm trying to forget the Mo years. It's kind of like with Dallas with Bobby when he was
a white 3/4 zip pullover, like an athletic 3/4 zip pullover. Yeah. He'd have it pretty much 3/4 of the way of the 3/4 way of the pullover unzipped, wearing a shirt and tie under it, and it looked so stupid. Anyway, I'm done.
Yeah, just wear a whole suit if you're going to do that route. I'm sure that Adidas was telling you to wear whatever, but anyway, let's. We've been here long enough, I think. You're getting close to an hour, guys. Looking forward to obviously 50 Pirates in 50 days. Thank you, Bubba, for Grant Lowe. We've got a lot of great players that are going to be coming up. Before we go on Thursday night, folks, we got a big show, right, Bubba?
Yeah, we do. Thursday night, we'll be talking East Carolina wrestling. That's 7 p.m. right here on Facebook Live and also YouTube. We'll catch up with John Welburn. He was the coach for East Carolina wrestling from 67 to 77, I think it was, maybe 67 to 78. In the program, I believe Mike Radford told me earlier today because I wasn't sure, and he said the program started, I want to say 64 and went up through 80 or 81. So Coach Welburn was there during the heyday, though, winning 5 consecutive SoCon titles.
And before we go, one more thing, guys, and we'll drop out of here. Charlie Daniels passed away today. R.I.P. to the CDB. I saw him several times in concert, and I'm sure you did too, Dave. Favorite Charlie Daniels songs, guys? I got to go with, if I got to choose one, I got to go with probably South's Gonna Do It Again, but The Legend of Woolly Swamp's right up there.
I'm going to go with my favorite is Long Hair Country Boy. I just love that one. But I love all this stuff. I'll tell this funny story real quick, guys. Then we'll go. Charlie Daniels, I got a chance to interview him, and he's one of my music heroes. I was on 98.5 The Big Dog, as people that are some people watching may know, back 2007 to 2010. 2007, that September, they had Roanoke Rapids had an amphitheater, and Gretchen Wilson and Charlie Daniels played. It was an amazing concert. We had a Big Dog party bus. So we get to the concert. Charlie wanted to meet people, and so we go backstage, and I'm so excited. And he was making over. He said, "Yeah, you're the guy that interviewed me, right?" He said, "Come back over here." He said, "Come back here. I want to talk to you." And I went behind the desk, and I handed my camera to the guys that were right behind me, and they were drunk, and they take the picture, and it's the only picture I have with a country star that's blurred. Of all the stars that I had, that was one of my most favorite ones. And I was like, so the moral of the story is don't give a camera to a drunk. For sure. But he was so cool to me. And I mean, the greatest feeling in the world is when you have one of your heroes, no matter what it is in life, and you have one of your heroes and they treat you great and they make you feel special. I'm sure he did that to a lot of folks, but he was just a great man, a great American. Certainly going to be missed. I'll tell you one thing. There's nobody, and I'll stand by this, that plays the fiddle better than Charlie Daniels. I'm sorry. There's a lot of great people, but I still say that he will always be my favorite fiddle player of all time.
Yeah, he played it with a little edge. Bobby, your favorite Charlie Daniels song?
Let's see. I'll go with a couple. Either Devil Went Down to Georgia or Few More Rednecks. And you remember Jamie Ray, who played baseball for the Pirates back in the Randy Mazey and also early Billy Godwin years. His walk-up song was Few More Rednecks. So.
What this world needs is a few more rednecks, and people ain't afraid to take a stand. What
Yes.
this needs is a little more respect for the Lord and the law and the working man.
Absolutely. That was of course, the part that Jamie Ray had playing, and that certainly resonated with me.
A great song. I don't think there's such thing as a bad Charlie Daniels song. They were all great, and we're certainly going to miss him.
Trucker Ace. That's another good one.
Oh, that's right. From that great movie with Burt Reynolds and Lonnie Anderson. Guys, and Charlie was for people that don't know, from Wilmington, and spent most of the time, obviously, in Tennessee, Lebanon.
Tennessee.
What's that?
Mount Juliet, Tennessee.
Mount Juliet, that's right. But that's in the Nashville area. But anyway, rest in peace, Charlie. We're going to miss you. Very proud the fact that they finally put you in the Country Music Hall of Fame a few years ago. And of course, a Grand Ole Opry member. And he was always in my Hall of Fame, sure, like I'm sure Kyle and Bubba as well. All right, guys, been a great show. Thanks to Grant Lowe. Thank you so much, Bubba, for this is your brainchild, 50 Pirates in 50 days. Kyle, you're awesome as always. Thanks, folks. You're awesome too, for watching 50 Pirates in 50 days. And we're doing it now on this great platform. And that is Facebook Live and the YouTube channel and our YouTube channel. And we'll, of course, release this as well on SoundCloud. And you've been listening to and watching 50 Pirates in 50 days on the Sports Objective. Good night, everybody. Go Pirates.